Hi community of awesome, I'm Ava J and this is Bookish Pixie. So last week I talked about how to learn to love editing, and so this week I'm kicking off my new How to Edit series with the first read through. So after you finish first drafting your manuscript and you've taken some time to develop some distance from your manuscript, whether that's a day, a week, or a month, which is how long I usually take, then it's time to take out your manuscript for the first time since you finished and read through it. This is what writers usually refer to as the first read through. As it is with most things in writing, there isn't really a right or wrong way to approach this. I'm just going to share with you guys the way I usually approach it, which may or may not work for you. So when I'm looking at a manuscript for the first time since I finished first drafting, I usually like to export it to a different format. I don't do this necessarily every single time, but I want to say probably every time with maybe one exception I've done that. Now what format you choose is completely up to you. Before I had an e-reader, I would always print out my manuscripts, which took up a lot of paper and ink, but it was worth it to me so that I could look at my manuscript in a different format. Since getting an iPad, I've started exporting it as an iBook. That way I could then look at it on my iPad and read it from there and take notes right within the iPad. I don't know what it is exactly about looking at it in a different format, but for some reason, because the whole thing looks different, it's easier to look at it with a more distance perspective. The other reason I really like exporting it into a different format is because it forces me not to do line edits. When you're going through the first draft of your manuscript, now is not the time to even think about line edits. When you first look at your first draft, you need to be looking for overall problems. This is the time to look at the big issues, whether it's plot and pacing, character motivation and development, world building, something else. You need to be looking for the issues that you need to change throughout your whole manuscript. The reason you want to go for this stuff first is if you focus on line edits at the beginning, a lot of that time and energy that you spent changing words here and there is going to go to waste when later on you end up needing to change the scene or throw out the scene entirely. Right now what you want to be thinking about is how to improve your story as a whole and what changes you can make to make your story better. With that in mind, I like to take notes on either Evernote or directly in the manuscript. When I do it directly in the manuscript, I often color code my notes. For example, I'll often have one color for plot problems and another color for character problems and another color for world building problems. And I'll also have a separate color for good things because it sometimes helps to leave yourself encouraging notes to help you get through edits. The other thing I like to look out for while I'm reading is I want to remember why I love the manuscript so much. Whether it's a particular character or snarky dialogue or whatever it is, I think it's important to make sure that you look at your manuscript and remind yourself why you love it so much. Because when you're editing, you're going to have a mountain of things you need to fix, and sometimes it can be easy to forget why you started writing it to begin with. Oftentimes, when I feel like giving up on a manuscript, it's those things I made note of to love that help me get through it. Another thing I think is important to acknowledge is sometimes when you read through your manuscript for the first time, you're going to hate it. And that may sound kind of harsh, but it happens to be the case pretty often where writers go through their manuscripts and realize this is going to need a lot of work. If after you read it, you find that you really don't like it, you have two options. You can either plow through edits, and usually when you do that, it's because there's still things about the manuscript that you really do love, or you can put it away. I've put away several manuscripts without attempting to edit them before, mostly because when I started reading them back, they lost their spark for me. It doesn't mean you're a failure, and it doesn't mean you're a terrible writer. Just means it's time to move on to something else. But on the other hand, I've also looked at manuscripts that I thought were going to be a total disaster and I hated when I finished first drafting. And then as I started reading it back, I started falling in love with it again, even though I knew it was going to be a lot of work. And those are hard because it is a lot of work and it can be totally exhausting. But I found that in my experience, at least, it's worth it every time. So that's all I got for today. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and comment, and I'll see you guys next week.